So today I want to talk about, I've called this Great Minds Don't Think Alike, because a little bit about thinking, and it's about thinking differently, especially if you're a leader, whether you're a leader within an organization or a business owner or an entrepreneur. It's really important for us to think differently. And ironically, perhaps the more experienced you are, the more dangerous it is to think the way that you've always thought, because the world has changed around us, and some of the thinking patterns and the tools and the habits that we've got just don't serve us anymore. They may have helped to get us here, but they won't help you be fit for the future. And fit for the future is, in fact, the conference keynote topic that I present on the most. And so what I'm going to share with you today are some of the ideas that I share with audiences in my Fit for the Future presentation. So we'll look at different ways of thinking. Broadly, I've got 5 of them, and so we get to spend about 5 minutes on each of them. So let me give you an overview of the 5 things, and then we'll jump in and look at them individually. So the first thing I want to talk about is seeing the invisible, because a lot of things coming up in the future that we can't predict straight away. Looking a bit further, so that's expanding your horizons. Letting go, perhaps things that don't serve you as well anymore, so being willing to let go of them. Step out, and I'll explain what that means. And finally, this concept called I Matter, which is very much my theme, part of my overall branding, and you'll see how it all fits into the way that you think differently. Okay, so let's look at this first area, which is seeing the invisible. So I'm going to show you a bit of a puzzle here. And I know I've shared this before on past webinars. So if you're a regular webinar attendee, or if you attended this one that when I showed it to you last time, you'll have a bit of an advantage. But that's okay. Yeah, still feel free to play along. So let me show you this puzzle, and I'll explain what's involved in it. Okay. So I've got these 4 cards here. You can see the back of cards number 1 and 3, and you can see the front of 2 and 4. And I'm going to make this statement. Every red-backed card has a dragon on the other side, and I'd like to know whether that's true or false. Now, you don't have enough information yet to tell me whether that's true or false, because you can't see the front or back of all the cards. You could certainly turn over all the cards and figure out whether that statement's true or false, because then you'd know exactly what's on the front and back, but you don't have to turn them all over. So my question to you, and this is the puzzle, is which cards would you have to turn over, and what's the minimum number that you would have to turn over in order to be able to tell me for sure whether that statement is true or false. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, given that this is an interactive webinar, is type in the question box. So if you think you need to turn over all of them, you type in 1, 2, 3, 4. If you think you only need to turn over 3 and 4, then you type 3, 4. If you need to turn over 1, 2, 3, type 1, 2, 3. And yeah, just type them in the question box. So I see 1, somebody has said 2, 1 and 3, 2, 1. I can tell you that it's more than 1 card, and it's certainly less than all 4 of them. Okay, so I can see some answers coming in, which are good, but so far nobody has got the right answer. So if you would like to have another guess, and you've already guessed, please feel free to do that. I'll keep going. Okay, I'm still waiting. I still haven't seen a correct answer yet, so feel free to keep guessing. So it's more than 1 card, by the way. So if you're typing in just 1, then you can just type in the full set, because I won't be able to go back through all your responses to tally them up. Okay, good. Okay, so some people are getting close, so let me share the answer with you. So here's the answer. And I'll talk you through this. So you definitely need to turn over card number 1, because you need to find out whether there's a dragon on the other side, because if there isn't, then of course the statement is false. You don't need to turn over number 3, because whether or not there's a dragon doesn't tell us anything about every red back card, so that's definitely eliminated. So you don't need to turn over number 3. You also don't need to turn over number 4, because if it's got a red back, it doesn't tell us anything about every red back card, and if it doesn't have a red back, it becomes irrelevant again. You do need to turn over number 2, because if it does have a red back, then the statement is false. Okay, and I can see a doe here, of course, right? So here's the answer. So the answer is you need to turn over 1 and 2. So here's the thing, and this is the reason why I share it with leaders in my conference presentations. Most people will figure out number 1. They'll get number 1 because they see the statement's got to do with red back and dragons, and they see a card with a red back. Most people don't figure out number 2 because there's no red, there's no back, there's no dragon. And the point is this, that when you can see what's coming up ahead of you, like number one, you can plan and anticipate for it. But there are some things that you just can't see. You don't know what's coming up in the future. So what you have to do there is become what I call fit for the future, which is learn the skills to be adaptable and flexible. So even things that are invisible, when they come and you come across them, then you're able to adapt to them. Okay, so it's easy to see the things that to plan for the things that you know, but also be aware of becoming good enough to be able to meet things that you don't know. And broadly, I reckon there are 5 things that you can do, or 5 ways that people deal with change. 2 of them aren't good, and I hope you don't do this. I hope you don't ignore the change that's coming ahead of you. I hope you don't resist the change and think, okay, this is no good. I need to resist the status quo. I hope you do one of these 2 things. So when change comes along, whether you've anticipated it or not, you can adapt to it and manage and work around and make sure that you deal with it. And even better, whether is if you can embrace the change. So you see it as an opportunity, not just as a problem. And the 5th one, if you can, and not everyone can do this, not everyone wants to do it, but if you can, be the person who leads the change, be the person that creates the disruption rather than the one who has to then deal with it. Okay, so that's the first thing. So in terms of your ways of thinking, I'd like you to think for yourself. I'm not going to ask you to share. Where do you fit? When you see change coming around, what are you good at? Are you good at adapting to change, which is good? So you manage the change that comes along. Do you see it as an opportunity and you go, fantastic, I love that change? Many Gen Ys and millennials do think exactly that way. And are there times in your life, professional life or personal life, when you've actually led the change? Okay, so that's the first of those 5 areas. So be good at looking for things and seeing the invisible. So not necessarily only the things that you know about, but being able to be flexible and deal with things that you don't. Okay, so that's the first one. And the second one is this one here, and I'm calling it Look Further, and I'll explain this by another kind of little puzzle for you here. It's not so much of a puzzle as the last one, but more of an exercise. So here's a little bit of a biography about a person. Okay, you don't know anything about this person, about Sarah, except for what you can read here. Okay, so I'll just pause for 10 seconds to give you the chance to read that. Okay, based on that information and nothing else, do you think that Sarah is more likely to be a school teacher or a holistic healer? And you can feel free to answer in the question box, but I want you to give a reason as well for your answer. Okay, so is she more likely to be a school teacher or a holistic healer? Okay, so here's, and I'll keep these anonymous, just the answers, so feel free to type them in. I'll read them out, but I'll keep them anonymous. So someone says both. So actually, there's one that's more likely than the other. So somebody else says could be either, but holistic healer would be following her passion. Holistic healer, maybe a school teacher because she needs the space in the answers. Holistic healer works with the spirit. Okay, good. All right. So here's the answer. She's much more likely to be a school teacher than a holistic healer. Okay, now here's why. Okay, here's another one. School teacher because she enjoys the holistic side of things. It doesn't say she works in it. And here's another one. She's a spiritual person more than fact-based. Okay, so here's the answer. She's much more likely to be a school teacher. And the reason is because there's so many more school teachers in the country or in the world than there are holistic healers. So if this is the only information that you have about her, then if you were rolling the dice, you go, yeah, I'm going to put my bet on school teacher because there's so many more of them around. It's like if an alien comes and visits Earth and the first person that they see is much more likely to be Chinese than anybody else, simply because there are more Chinese, or actually Indians are close as well, much more likely than anybody else. And this is one of the traps that many people fall into, is that they base what they see based on their existing knowledge. So this looks like the profile of a holistic healer, and because they may even know holistic healers who fit that kind of profile, and they may not know any school teachers who fit that profile, they tend to base it on their own knowledge rather than the facts. Here's another example, which kind of is close to many of us. If I asked you to give me the split in terms of smartphone usage between Apple, iOS, and Android, what do you think it is? Do you think it's like 80% iOS, 20% Android, 50-50, 20-80? So where would you think the split is? So I won't ask you for the answer there, but I'll give you the answer. And most people are surprised to find that Android phones have 80% of the smartphone market, and Apple iOS is a tiny 15%, and then there's another 5%, which is like Windows phones and things like that. And so for most of us who live in a country like Australia, that's bizarre. But around the world, those numbers are big. And the reason is because if you are a rich white person or you hang around rich white people, you'll see a lot of people using Apple. And in countries like Australia and the USA, it's about 50-50. But if you think about the whole world, most people are using Android phones because they're much more affordable for the same kind of features. Apple doesn't have the Apple stores and that other sort of support in many other parts of the world. So just be careful not to make judgments based on what you can see now and what you can see in front of you. Whatever assumptions you're making, test your assumptions, because they might be wrong, and sometimes they might be wildly wrong because you may not be looking far enough. And that's why I've called this one Look Further. And the way to look further is to test your assumptions. Don't just rely on what's worked for you in the past. Okay, let me stop for any questions or comments. We've done 2 out of 5 so far. Okay, so there's the couple of thank yous going. I never thought of that before. Good, good, good. I'm glad that you didn't. Okay, let me continue. Okay, so the third one I'm calling letting go, and this is one of the biggest challenges for experienced leaders, managers, business owners, entrepreneurs. And I tell this story in my keynote presentations that in a few years' time, we'll be able to have spaceships that take people to planets far beyond our solar system. So, and I ask people who wants to get in a spaceship and go to another planet. Lots of people put up their hands, surprisingly more than I expect. But the problem with that is that before you get to the edge of our solar system, if you're on one of those spaceships, you'll get overtaken by another spaceship that left Earth years after you did, but with better technology. So why would you wait? You might as well get on the, why would you get in the first one? You might as well wait. But that second one has the same problem. Before it gets to the edge of the solar system, it gets overtaken by another one because technology is moving so fast. Okay, and you think that's bizarre, but you do the same thing with your own technology and some of your own systems. So again, let's talk about that. If you've got an iPhone, you think I should upgrade to the next version of the iPhone, but you go, no, I'll wait because Apple will bring out something that's better. So they'll bring out the next version, so I'll wait. Or you think, okay, Google's going to bring out something that's even better, so you'll wait. Okay, so this is what happens because technology is moving so fast and our world's changing so fast that sometimes we just sit and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, and we wait for the better spaceship. And there's never going to be one because until someone actually does something, gets on that first spaceship, nothing happens. You can wait forever. Okay, and I know you do this in your own business, and I know I do this in my business as well. So here's my solution and what I recommend. Figure out if there's something that you're going to invest 2 days of time in that's going to have a long-term return, then it's worth that investment of time. So do you need to upgrade your software, but you're worried because it's going to lose you 2 days in productivity? But if it's going to have a long-term positive impact, then do it. Or switch from PC to Mac or Mac to PC, so something like that. Maybe you need to switch to a new software system. So it took me about 2 days when I switched from MyOb, my accounting package, to go to Xero, which was in the cloud. It took me about 2 days, I reckon, over about a couple of weeks, but probably about 2 days in total. So there's a bit of pain I went through, but I'm so much happier now that I'm using something that's cloud-based, that integrates with a whole bunch of other software, that is much easier for me to use, that I can access from my mobile phone. All of those things are worth the 2 days of investment. Do you need to train a staff member to do something that you've been doing? If it takes 2 days, do it. Do you need to upskill yourself? Do an online course. And if it means investing 2 days of your time to do the course, to do the exercise, to do the work, then maybe it's worthwhile. So I'm just curious for anyone here who wants to share, and again, I will keep this anonymous. Is there something that you've been putting off because you think it's actually going to take a bit of time to do that? But if you really think about it, maybe it really is only about 2 days of time invested, and it'll have a long-term return. Is there anyone who's got an idea, an example? Just type it in the question box, and I'll keep it anonymous. Review my insurance needs. Yep, someone says that, and that's exactly me as well. And so for me, the insurance is a good example because I've just got my renewal notice from my broker, and that's sparked me, it triggered the idea that, okay, I should review it. So it's lucky that I got the renewal notice, but it's even better if there's something that wasn't triggered by something, but you have to proactively decide. Somebody says, I need to spend 2 days to invest in new CRM software. Yeah. Getting started with podcasts. Yep, I reckon that's a 2-day job. Review the best website platforms for a new blog. Yep, I reckon that's a 2-day job. Get better at website updating myself. Yep, good. Okay, so these are sort of things which are very easy to put off because you're just waiting for a better spaceship or waiting for somebody else to come along and do it for you. Bite the bullet, grit your teeth, and invest the 2 days in it. Yeah, interesting one. Read a book on blue ocean strategy. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so please do this, folks, because it's human nature to go, no, we'll wait for something better because things are moving so fast. But remember, you can just be waiting for a better spaceship forever. Okay, here's the next one. So the next one I'm calling is stepping out, which is looking beyond your comfort zone and beyond your perspective. So let me show you another example. This one's not really a puzzle, but if you look at this picture here, so you can see this kind of checkerboard or chessboard, and I'd like you to look at the squares A and B in particular. And if I ask you, and you don't have to type this in the question box, but if I ask you, which is the darker, A or B? Now, obviously, it looks like A is darker, right? Now, you may know me quite too well by now and go, no, maybe B is darker or maybe they're the same color. In fact, they are the same. Okay, and I can let me prove that to you, but I'll draw you another A. There's one there and another A here, and now you can see that with the bridge between them, they are actually the same color. And yet, if I take away those two things that they've bridged there, even now you look at it and you go, that's bizarre. They completely look like different colors. So the reason our eyes trick us is because we always do things based on the context, so on what's happening around us. So you could be sitting in your business or in your team or your organization in box A, and you're thinking about what's important to you. So in box A, you might be thinking about your team, you might be thinking about your performance, you might be thinking about your KPIs, you may be thinking about a challenge that you're having with somebody else or one of your peers, you may be thinking about what you need to do to get promoted, and so on. And then there are your customers and clients who are sitting in box B, and they don't care about that. They don't care about your team, your KPIs, your performance, challenges that you're having, and your career. What they care about is getting their problem solved. And so if you're stuck in box A and you only see from box A and you can't look beyond that, then your customers and clients might have completely different contexts, which means they won't choose you anymore. And so they'll either go to somebody else or they'll continue using you, but reluctantly, while they're looking for somebody else. And lots of businesses, organizations, and leaders get blindsided because they're looking at it from a different perspective. And just understand that your customers and clients have many, many, many more options than ever before. I like this quotation, which I looked for the origin of it. It's been attributed to a number of different people that says we don't see things as they are, but we see things as we are. And that's exactly what I'm talking about here. So we see things from our perspective, and our customers and clients, and actually our team members as well, have a completely different perspective. So what can you do to listen more to them? In Seoul, in South Korea, the city council decided they want to hear more from their residents. So what they did was they erected this giant ear in the town square. So if you're walking by with a complaint or a comment or even a compliment, you can lean over and speak into it, and it gets recorded for the town council. In fact, it not just gets recorded, it gets played back through City Hall so that everyone walking in there knows what the residents are saying. So how can you listen more to your customers and clients? Because if you're not, then just realize that you may not see things from their perspective, and their perspective is the real perspective. Okay, so everyone has their own perspective on the world, but remember, they're the ones who are looking for a solution to their problem, and they may not choose you anymore. Okay, let's look at the last one. So the last one, and I'll explain what I mean by I matter, because this underlies everything that I do, everything that I teach. Does anyone recognize this? Okay, again, I won't ask you to, oh, you maybe I will ask you to type in the question box if you recognize this. Yeah, that's right. So this is Pong. Exactly right, Pong. So this is what computer games looked like when I was growing up. This is my partner Nikki's 14-year-old son Josh. Okay, so he's the one on the left there, and he loves computer games. And this is what computer games look like now. So on his Xbox, it's a much different experience. And the thing is, there are still many leaders and business owners who are Pong thinkers in an Xbox world. Okay, and the more experienced you are, perhaps the more you are still a Pong thinker in a very much an Xbox world. And the good thing is that you have got those Xbox thinkers in your organization. You may just not be tapping into their talents and skills and abilities because you may see them as the junior people in your organization. You may see them as inexperienced. They don't understand your systems, the processes, the way that you work. They just don't have the insights that can help them. So it's up to you to train them. But as one of my clients, one of my consulting clients, Dr. Nikki Howe, said very wisely, didn't you employ knowledge workers for their knowledge? And if you're not taking advantage of that, then you are perhaps missing out on the biggest opportunity and the biggest untapped asset in your organization. So for decades, people have been saying people are our biggest asset, but for a long time, that's just been it's it, it people the people who say that, the leaders who say that, absolutely don't believe it, even though they like to say it. So it's management speak, and it's good to say that on a website, but it actually is true as well, and very much so now because people actually do have the ability to do amazing things. Let me ask you this again. I shared this in a webinar recently, so you might know the answer to this. What do these three things have in common? So Amazon Prime is Amazon's membership service. So you can sign up for, I think, $99 a year, and then you can get as many books as you like, and there's free shipping, and there's a few other benefits like that. There's Gmail, which many people use now, and there's McDonald's McCafes. Does anyone know what these three things have in common? If you know, please just type it in the question box. Or if you want to have a guess, feel free to guess. I'm happy to take guesses. They are service providers, yep. Branding, yep. Yeah, yeah. So they're all building on other brands. Yeah, I get that. So Amazon Prime's building on Amazon. Yeah, that's right. But that's not the one I'm looking for. They didn't exist 20 years ago. Okay, yeah. They're global. Yep. Customers came up with the idea. You're close, Tony. One person has actually got the right answer. Vicky, you've got the right answer. But I won't read yours out till later. Okay, great. So Vicky's got the answer, which is that the idea started from a staff member. Okay, so all those three things. So Amazon Prime was from one of Amazon's staff members who put it in their suggestion box. Said, why don't we create instead of just selling one off, why don't we create a subscription service? And it's huge now for Amazon. It's a very, very big service. Gmail was created when Google used to have that 20% time where all Google engineers were able to spend a day a week working on whatever they wanted, whatever they'd liked. Could be completely unrelated to the company, but somebody came up with Gmail. And McCafe was created by, in fact, one of the McDonald's franchisees in Melbourne. She came up with this idea of McCafe, and now it's been adopted around the world. So this is what I mean by saying that sometimes your team members, your employees, who you may think are more junior than you, have fantastic ideas, have brilliant ideas, and all you've got to do is to tap into them. I know that's easier said than done, but I reckon the best way that you can start is, first of all, acknowledging that they may have better ideas than you have, and secondly, just give them what they need to be able to express, share, and implement their ideas. When Winston Churchill, towards the end of World War II, was asked by the Americans, what can we do to help you win the war? And he said this, give us the tools and we will finish the job. And I think that's so true of the way that you treat your people now, because there are more people in your team, in your organization than ever before who say, I matter. And they have great ideas. They're maybe already implementing some of those ideas outside your workplace, and now give them the chance to do it within your workplace as well. And that will help you avoid some of the traps in your own thinking and some of the limitations in your own thinking. So it does mean being a bit more humble and saying, actually, I don't have all the answers now, but I have access to the people who do. Okay, so there's the 5 things: seeing the invisible, looking further, letting go, stepping out, and taking advantage of the people around you. And it doesn't only have to be in your professional life; it could be in your personal life as well. So Josh, who I showed you earlier, Nikki's son, we get together every month over a chocolate milkshake, and he shares the things that are new in apps and technology, and how Snapchat's working, because it's great, because he loves that stuff. So why wouldn't I tap into his knowledge and skills? It's called reverse mentoring, and I reckon if you're not doing it already, you should do it within your organization. Any last questions or comments? And then we finish up. Okay, so then of these 5, which of those 5 do you think that you will make the most use of, and that you will take into and do today or tomorrow? Oh, actually, let me go back to the previous slide so you can see those 5. Again, just read. I'll read them out and I'll keep it anonymous. So, love the reverse mentoring concept. Yep. Spend 2 days on something that matters. Good. Okay, I see quite a few thank yous coming in. Thank you for that. A couple of things I need to get on and embrace. Okay, good. Okay. Very interesting. Not waiting for the next rocket. Yeah, great. Find the invisible in my quest. Step out. Yeah, good. Spend 2 days looking at website options. Brilliant. Another thank you. Awesome. And thank you, Gihan. As an entrepreneur, I lived this life. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And some entrepreneurs are very good at that. And many entrepreneurs, an entrepreneur, remember, is just somebody who runs an enterprise. Some entrepreneurs are not so good, and they start off like that, but then they think that that they know more than they actually do. And I'm not saying you don't know enough. It's just that maybe what you know isn't as relevant now. Step out and embrace change. Great, brilliant. So as I said, make notes of the from what we had covered in today's webinar. Think about things you can do immediately, or fairly soon, or if they're bigger things, don't lose them. Okay, so have a 90-day project to make them happen. As I said, if you complete the exit survey, I'll send you this resource that I created called 23 Ways to Get More from Your Team Members by Building Their Judgment. I see a few other comments and questions coming in. I need a young mentor. It's what my connections know and what their connections know. Yep, that matters. Great. Okay, so thank you, everyone. If you're interested in finding out more about what I do in terms of speaking, or you want me to share these ideas at your conference, then find out more at gihanspeaks.com. So I run these webinars regularly. The next one coming up in May is called The End of Distance. And it's again looking at the future and looking at some of the technologies that's really created a much smaller world for us and what that means for us. So we'll look at things like driverless cars, virtual reality. It's a fun journey into our future. So that's coming up in May. If you're watching this live, then you don't have to do anything because you get the reminders automatically. If you're watching the recording, then go to seeingintothefuture.com and you can subscribe to the webinar series. It's free and it's available to anybody, and you can just join. Each webinar goes for about half an hour. If you really like this webinar, please send your friends along to seeingintothefuture.com as well, and they can register. So thanks everyone for coming along, and thanks everyone for taking part today. I really like these interactive sessions, and they work best when people do engage. So thank you for doing that. Have a great day, and I'll see you again in about a month's time. Thanks everyone, and bye for now.